Okay, let's unpack this. We're seeing this huge trend really across the world, this drive for energy independence.
Hmm.
Rooftop solar is just exploding.
Absolutely. And more, people aren't just stopping at solar panels, they're adding battery storage into the mix.
Yeah, it really feels like the future, doesn't it? Generating your own power, storing it up, using it exactly when you need it.
It does, but with that kind of big shift in how energy is generated and used, especially right down at the house or business level, well, it brings up some really complex challenges.
Like, how do you manage all that?
Exactly. How do you integrate all these individual power sources back into the big national grid without causing instability or, making things unfair for people without solar?
Right, it's a huge puzzle for regulators.
Yeah.
So today we're going to dig into how one country, Cambodia, is tackling this specific issue head on. We've got some source material here, articles, official documents laying out some pretty interesting and quite specific new rules they've put in place, specifically for rooftop solar systems that also have battery storage.
And our goal here, using these sources, is really to decode these rules.
Mm.
What do they actually mean for people using these systems? And maybe more importantly, why did they choose this path? What are they trying to achieve?
Yeah, what's the thinking? And for you listening, this is a really practical look at sort of the cutting edge of energy policy. Because as more homes, more businesses adopt solar and batteries, governments everywhere are wrestling with these same questions.
So understanding Cambodia's approach gives some real insight into the kind of detailed thinking that's needed.
Okay, so the background is clear. Lots more solar, lots more batteries being installed. Great for the owner, right?
Definitely. Obvious benefits for the prosumer, the person both producing and consuming their own energy.
Right. You're less reliant on the grid. You might save money. You've got backup if the power goes out. It's all very attractive.
But then there's the other side, the impact on the utility, the grid itself. If loads of people suddenly use way less grid power or start pushing power back unexpectedly, it messes with load patterns.
Affects stability.
Right. And it impacts the money the utility needs to, keep the grid running for everyone else.
Which is exactly why governments need to step in and create some rules, a framework.
And these sources we have point to a key document in Cambodia. It's called the Updated Principles for Permitting the Use of Rooftop Solar Power in Cambodia.
Okay.
And these principles get right into the specifics for these solar plus battery setups.
And the big thing that jumps out, according to the sources, is this new compensation fee. It's not just a general solar thing. It's aimed squarely at systems with batteries.
That's the core of it.
Yeah.
And the documents mention the specific basis for this fee structure is EAC Decision Number 101, dated May 29, 2025. So this is a very current policy.
Right, brand new. So this fee, what's interesting about it?
Well, what's really fascinating, as described in the sources, is how it's structured. It seems designed to actively incentivize you to use your battery. It's not just a flat rate.
Okay.
It depends heavily, month by month, on how much energy you actually discharge from your battery compared to how much your solar panels generate.
All right, let's break that down then.
Yeah.
How does it work? Sounds like there are two main scenarios.
Exactly. The rules basically look at your battery's performance each month. Scenario 1 is when your battery is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, meaning if the energy generated by your battery storage system, the amount you discharged, is more than 50% of the total energy your rooftop solar panels produce that month.
Okay, so battery output is over half of the solar panel output for the month.
Yes. In that case, you're seen as being largely self-sufficient for that period. You're using your stored solar power effectively.
And the result? What happens with the fee?
And this is the key incentive.
All right.
If you hit that target, battery output over 50% of solar output, you pay zero compensation fee for that month.
Ah, okay. So meet the threshold, no fee. That's a pretty clear signal.
It really is. It's strongly kind of nudges solar owners to maximize using that stored energy. The policy is basically saying, use your battery. It pushes towards real energy independence from the grid.
Okay, so that's scenario 1. What about scenario 2? When you don't hit that 50% mark.
Right. So this is when your battery generates less than 50% of what your solar system produced in that month. Maybe you didn't need to discharge it as much, or your usage patterns didn't quite line up, whatever the reason.
So battery output is under half the solar generation for the month.
Exactly. And in this situation, a compensation fee does apply.
Why then? What's the reasoning?
The sources suggest this is when your system is still interacting more significantly with the grid, maybe drawing power during peak times, or just requiring the grid to manage those fluctuations more actively because you're not relying as heavily on your stored power.
Okay, so a fee applies, But you mentioned earlier it's still designed to encourage battery use, even here.
Yes, exactly. It's not just a street penalty for being under 50%. This is where the specific formula comes into play, and it's quite clever, actually.
Right, let's hear it. The formula.
Okay, according to the documents, the formula is compensation fee payable. Amount of electricity produced by rooftop solar system, kilowatt H, 2x energy output by battery storage system, kilowatt X, compensation fee rate.
Whoa, okay, let's unpack that.
Yeah.
So you take the total solar produced,
In kilowatt for the month, yes.
then you subtract 2 times the energy discharged from the battery.
Precisely. 2 times the kilowatt output from the battery.
And then you multiply that result by the fee rate.
That's it. So the crucial part is that middle bit, subtracting double the battery output.
What does that 2x actually do in practice?
Well, think about it. Every single kilowatt hour you discharge from your battery counts twice as much in reducing the base amount that the fee rate gets applied to.
Ah, I see. So it heavily weights battery usage in the calculation.
Exactly. Even if you don't clear the 50% hurdle to avoid the fee altogether, discharging more from your battery still directly and significantly reduces the amount of energy that you'll actually be charged the compensation rate on.
Okay, that makes sense. It's not just an on-off switch at 50%. Below that line, there's still a strong incentive, a sliding scale, almost, where using your battery more means paying less fee because of that double credit in the formula. That's quite nuanced.
It really is. Sends a clear signal. Any battery usage helps reduce your potential fee, but obviously getting over 50% gives you the maximum benefit zero fee.
So looking at the bigger picture then, why this specific approach for Cambodia? Any insight from the sources on like why 50%? Why the 2x multiplier? How did they land on this model?
The source materials focus more on the intended outcomes, the policy goals, rather than the, say, detailed economic modeling behind the specific numbers.
Okay, and what are those goals?
Well, they seem pretty clear. First, integrate renewables responsibly. Second, really push solar owners to maximize using their batteries for their own needs, self-consumption.
Right.
Third, help stabilize the grid by reducing unpredictable draws or exports. And ultimately, it's about balancing the adoption of this new tech with the practical needs of the whole electricity system.
It feels like they've looked at potential problems, grid strain, revenue issues for the utility, and designed something that puts the financial incentive squarely on the user to manage their own supply using the battery.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's almost like saying, look, if you use your battery effectively to manage your own power, you get rewarded. If you're still leaning heavily on the grid relative to your solar generation, well, there's a cost associated with that to help maintain the system for everyone.
That captures it well. It's a mechanism trying to align the financial interests of the individual homeowner or business with the operational needs of the grid operator. Make battery self-consumption pay off, basically.
It seems like a very practical, almost mathematical way to approach it. Yeah. It goes beyond simpler ideas like, just basic net metering where you get credit for exports.
Right, or just flat capacity fees. This gets into incentivizing specific behavior, how you actually use the stored power.
And it really prioritizes using the power yourself, doesn't it? Over just exporting it back to the grid.
Absolutely. A pure net metering system might encourage you to just send excess solar back. This Cambodian model, though, clearly favors storing that excess power and using it yourself later, thanks to how the fee works.
Okay, let's sort of wrap this part up then. We've dug into Cambodia's new rules for rooftop solar with batteries. The main thing is this compensation fee.
Yeah, a fee that's directly linked to how much you use your battery compared to how much solar you generate each month.
With that key 50% threshold. Use the battery for more than half your solar output. No fee. Use it less.
A fee applies, but the formula subtracting double your battery output means using the battery more always reduces the fee you pay, even below that 50% line.
So it's a really specific, formula-driven strategy, clearly aimed at managing grid impact while pushing investment in, and importantly, the use of battery storage. It really highlights the kind of detailed policy needed to balance clean energy goals with grid realities.
It does.
So here's something to think about. What stands out to you about this particular method, the 50% rule, the 2x formula, compared to other ways governments regulate this stuff, like simpler net metering or maybe fixed charges? And how might knowing about a system like this actually influence someone's decision-making process if they were considering installing solar and battery storage, whether in Cambodia or maybe somewhere else, thinking along similar lines?